Thank you all for coming. My name is Acting Superintendent Nina Vaughn, V-A-U-G-H-A-N. Thank you all for coming. As you know, in November of 2012, we undertook a pilot project testing body-worn cameras with the Calgary Police Service. We had 50 cameras initially as part of the pilot, and those were deployed amongst beat units, patrol officers, gang suppression teams, canine officers, and frontline officers. To date, we've captured over 2,700 videos as a result of the pilot. Of those 2,700, a little over 30 have been used in court cases, and of those a little over 30, I think we've had 13 result in early case resolution prior to going to trial. They've been activated or are activated when officers are responding to calls as a result of a call for service or as part of an investigation. We've collected a wide range of videos, including impaired drivings, traffic stops, social disorder, intoxicated persons, homicide investigations. Really, they span the spectrum of every situation that police officers find themselves in every day. To date, our plan is to store the videos for 13 months unless they've been used as part of a court case or have been requested as a result of a complaint or any other request to have them saved, and then of course we can save them as long as we need to, up to 25 years. So now that the pilot is complete, we will be looking to expand it service-wide. To date, we still have a lot of work to do to address some of the issues that the pilot identified and to determine what the overall cost will be to roll it out service-wide and a time frame for that. So that's really all the information I have. If anybody has any questions.
What are some of the issues that you identified?
Most of the issues were around technology. So there were some issues with lighting on some of the cameras. So in low light settings, some of the video wasn't as clear as it could be. There were some issues with audio as well. Some issues around the camera and actually physically wearing the camera and the technology on the body, those types of issues. Some issues around policy that has to be created to address issues like privacy issues, so when you're taping in somebody's residence or when you're taping out on the street. Those were really the two areas, and policy for the officers on when to use them and when not to use them. We just simply can't tape an entire 12-hour shift for an officer. We just don't have the capacity to store that much data, so we had to create policies around when it's appropriate to turn them on and when it's appropriate to turn them off.
When is that? When are they on?
So they turn them on whenever there's going to be, when there's part of an investigation, when somebody has initiated a call for service for police, an officer violator contact, so traffic stops or officer-citizen contact. Those are the types of situations when they'll turn them on.
And they're required to turn them on?
Those are the types of situations when we want them to turn them on, yes. So there will be policy around when it's appropriate for them to turn them on and when it's appropriate for them to turn them off as well.
Out of those 13 cases that resulted in early resolution, were all 13 of those a case where someone was guilty, caught on camera, and pleads out, or were there cases where the video exculpated somebody and actually pointed you in another direction?
I don't have the information on that. I'd have to get back to you on that.
We've seen this with the vehicle cameras, I think. Gentlemen can attest to this. Are you finding that when this video evidence is presented in court that the mannerism of the accused changes drastically compared to maybe a case where there is no video?
Well, I can't speak to when they've been shown in court because none have reached that stage yet. Because the pilot is so new, usually it takes longer than 6 months for a case to go to trial in court.
When they're made
So,
aware there is video of the situation.
I'm sorry?
When they're made aware there is video.
Well, I think that probably speaks to why we've had 13 early case resolutions before it got to court.
Has there been any review about some of the officers, how they may be interacting with somebody? Maybe they didn't realize they was sharp with them or tone or that. Has there been any review of any of those kinds of things?
I'm not really sure the question
Well,
you're
what I'm
asking,
saying
sorry.
is that sometimes, I'm wondering where they would have, sometimes you would look at the stuff after when officers might have found that maybe they were not as, maybe a little more aggressive than they needed to be, or vice versa, maybe weren't as aggressive as they should have been. Maybe could have handled the situation a little differently, or?
So I think what you're asking, and if I'm wrong, I'm sure you'll tell me, that there is an ability to use some of them for training purposes, and I think we are doing that, identifying certain ones that are helpful for that purpose. We have not reviewed all 2,700 videos clearly, so that's not what we're doing, but there are certain ones that have been used for training purposes and will continue to be used for that purpose.
You've touched on sort of the evidentiary value of the cameras. What can you say, or what would the public want to know, in terms of officer safety and public safety and accountability? Why are these a good tool to meet those ends?
I think they're a good tool for a few reasons. I think we all know and assume that we're being videotaped and audio taped everywhere we go nowadays. Often in clips that you can see in social media, incidents can be taken out of context or the entire incident isn't shown. So this provides a different perspective, a police perspective, and provides transparency for the entire situation and makes that available as an additional side to the story. So in previous cases where you might see a little clip of a video but not saw what led up to it, this just provides a greater scope of the story and from a different perspective as well.
Any concern, officer, I mean, with all the cameras around, you probably dealt with this, any hesitation by officers sometimes in a situation, how should I act here because I'm on camera? With these things, it's just an additional, I'm always being watched. Is there any concern there might be a split-second hesitation, something longer where they shouldn't be hesitating?
That's a really good question, and I have not heard of that being a concern for the officers. I think any of the concerns that were raised, or most of the concerns that were raised, were really focused around the technology issues like I talked about. Physically, how do you wear it on the belt, and is it comfortable, and does it work properly, and does it get in your way when you are having those interactions with the public? But I certainly haven't heard of that being a concern, and I hope it isn't.
I realize that the cost of these things could be flexible depending on how many are ordered at what time.
Yeah.
But can you give a ballpark or an average of what the current technology that these guys are using, how much it costs?
So you're right, it is really hard to tell because this will have to go to RFP, and at the end of the day, the cost will be determined on what we end up getting. So it is impossible to tell now what it's going to cost to roll out because we don't know what some of the storage costs are going to. We still have a lot of work to do in terms of storage costs and to complete the RFP to find out what that total cost is going to be for support, back-end support, technological support. So sorry, I really it would just be careless to throw a number out there.
Is there a goal for having every officer up there with this? Is there a timeline?
Well, I think it would be ideal if we could do it, if we could do it quickly, but the reality is that it just takes a while to go through this process and figure out what all those charges are, what all those costs are going to be.
Is there a pecking order or a priority in terms of the rollout, like where we may be seeing these next?
Well, I think we have 50 already out there, so we won't be pulling those back. Those will continue to operate because those will help us address further issues that might arise that we haven't thought of or haven't really come across yet. So we're not pulling those back, but certainly the goal will be to roll them out to uniform officers throughout the service eventually.
Okay, any other questions?